everyone. This is Isabel.
Hey, and it's Wind, and here we go again with the third episode of Synergy.
Yes. And what's the word of the day?
Well, synergistically, we had a funny experience where we both, without talking about it, came up with shadow.
Yeah, it's been so clear in my meditation. And it was about, I want to say around 4:30. I went into meditation. It just popped in my head. And like I was saying earlier, like it's never been that clear. Usually I hear things, but this one was like
Yeah,
so clear. It was like someone spoke to me.
and what I was doing was, Isabel and I, I should say Isabel, the logistics person, put up our podcast onto a webpage. And so I was listening to our first one today, and our first one we were talking about shadow work, and it was like popping at me so big. I was like, shadow, that's our word of the day. And I never mentioned it to Isabel until about 15, 20 minutes before we got on this call here. So, and she had that exact same experience with her meditation.
Yeah.
So I'm just talking to the listeners, I guess, right now. But yeah, that was kind of a funny deal.
Yeah, it is a funny deal because
Oh, 3 episodes in, and we're already like jiving like that.
I know, I love it. And I know that some people can't see us, but if
Yeah.
you are on our premium membership, you're able to see us. So you have the video option. And I am wearing my Metallica t-shirt for the shadow.
And I got my Iron Maiden t-shirt. Yeah.
We're going to rock this one.
We're going to rock this shadow shit.
Oh, that's funny. I feel compelled to share my week with you. And I don't know if it's all connected to the shadow, but maybe it is.
Who
It's
knows?
just been ridiculous. Like,
Okay.
have you been going through that craziness too? Like, I've just been exhausted.
I have been actually going through the bliss of moving into the creative realms from having gone through the shadow work. And
Oh,
that is also crazy on the body, because it's like the body is trying to keep up with the energy flow of creativity that's always there when we do the shadow work.
yeah.
And it's a lot to hold on to and not feel tanked. So that's what I've been dealing with.
Oh, so we'll talk about that because I
Yeah,
feel like we
sure.
need to talk about this.
Yeah.
But first, let's define the shadow. Like, what does it mean for someone who have no clue what we're talking about other than the darkness behind the light?
I like storytelling as a way of describing. So let's hear your story of
Yeah,
what the week has been like.
yeah, I guess. So for me, well, yeah, my it's been draining, and that's why the way you explain it, it makes sense. Like I don't feel drained mentally. I feel physically completely drained.
Hmm.
And I've been working on a lot of shadow even before we met, you and I know you've like helped me walk through some of my shadow piece, but I've been quite aware of the way that I see the shadow for me come out when I look at other people and I don't like what I see
Hmm. Hmm.
or what I hear. And usually it's a reflection of my own inner scape and what's going on inside, like my body and my mind and all that. So yeah, so for me, like it's really, that's the shadow. It's to see things or take be aware of things that I don't want, that makes me uncomfortable, or that I don't want to deal with, or that I don't tolerate in others. That's for me is the shadow work that comes to me and needs to be worked on. So this week
Yes.
I can't pinpoint one situation or something in particular. I know I've been really annoyed by people
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
during the week, and for different reasons, but I can't pinpoint a specific thing for this week though.
So you might use this language more than I do, but I keep hearing right now that Taurus is moving into Uranus, or Uranus is moving into Taurus.
I heard
What's
about
that?
that.
Does this tie into this what you're experiencing?
I
I'm not
think
privy
so.
to
I think it's a huge shift that is happening energetically, like at a universal level. And I know like a lot of people, and we have people in common that are going through like an awakening or a second awakening, and it's like there's a lot of shifting happening, I feel, in terms of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think you just nailed something. For me, it's moving into shedding. Like I'm shedding a lot of stuff. So I'm dealing with my shadow, but I feel like my body is not moving as fast as my mind and my spirit, if that might makes any sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I've dealt with on a mental mind, I've dealt with it because I've been in the awareness. I've dealt with it on the spiritual level because I've been really like meditating or being in the present moment when things happen. So being the observer.
Mm-hmm.
But on a body, like my physical body, I'm just physically drained, and I'm wondering if that's all connected. What do you think?
I'm having the same symptoms, but it's from my trying, yeah, exactly, trying to keep up with what's going on, how quick everything starts to move. I almost wonder if maybe the definition of shadow is really everything that stops you from being in your creative flow.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because when the shadow work ends, and here's a funny story. Uh, Help me come back to what I just said, because I do trail into stories and forget.
I want to write that down too, because I like that.
So yeah, I feel that the shadow work is the work that stops us from being in our pure creative flow.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And so when I arrived in Asheville, North Carolina, where I am, several months ago, first thing I did is I went to this a polyamory group experience, and the people who facilitated it called themselves shadow workers. And what they did was this was a cuddle session but they set up ground rules where what does no mean, what does a yes sound like, good things, I agree, but they overkilled it. And 2 hours later, I felt everybody's anger had just really actually killed the idea of any real want to connect, at least for me.
Okay.
And so they were like, and they were calling this shadow work as well, which I didn't know, but ahead of time. And I left as quickly as I could after that, because I was so disappointed in the way that it was going about.
Yeah.
And but an interesting thing that happened that night, when I discovered that the facilitators, like after all the rules and all the brow beating and all the things that happened, and all the women complaining about men and everything, and they're like, well, here we go, like that's the way to have foreplay, is tell everybody what's wrong with the other gender. And so, but one of the angriest women there was talking with one of the facilitators and talking about the shadow work, and then they brought me into the conversation without, just to be polite, but I didn't want to be in the conversation, but they brought me in, and I said, well, my shadow work has ended. It ended before I got here, and then, if you date back to your and my first podcast, we talk about our story there.
Yeah.
And how when you and I did sessions, like maybe 2 months after this particular night, you had even seen that I had cleared through and broken into the realms of mastery. And so if I wasn't sure that particular, I felt certain this night when I was in this event, and
Yeah.
then it was just validated over the next 2 months after that. But I said that, and they looked at me like I was crazy, as if, how dare you, Mr. Non-shadow worker, say that shadow work ends? And they got really smarmy with me, especially the woman who hated all men. And I was really interesting, and I was like, yep, this is my sign, as not Jeff Foxworthy, but one of his cronies would say, here's your sign. That was my sign to get out of there, because the mentality is that, no, we're gonna suffer until we fucking die, and
Okay.
that's like the common human paradigm right now, is no, you suffer until you die, and then your shadow work can end,
Right.
because you're not in a body anymore. And so that takes me back to what I originally said, that I think that shadow work is all the things from this lifetime, other lifetimes, other whatever, that you came in with,
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you don't believe in reincarnation, you could say it's all the stuff that you've encountered in your life up to a certain point that have built themselves up for you to work with and sort through. And when you do that appropriately meaning there's no right or wrong way, but if you want to go on this evolutionary journey to become your truest, highest form while still in a body, you got to go through all these things that are set out in front of you and make amends with them one way or the other. And it all comes down to, the things that we've been talking about the first two podcasts, which is being present, being the observer, finding acceptance and love and all that. So I guess, maybe through the definition, through the storytelling, I feel like maybe the definition that I would give shadow work is everything that stops you from being your true creative self.
I love that. That's so true, because all I've been doing is laying down on the couch, which is not very creative.
I mean, but the point is that you're not a person who does that on a regular. So your body actually wants to process stuff right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. Now, if you spend your entire life doing that, well, that's okay. And I always say this, I've been saying this since the beginning of my awakening. If you want to be 400 pounds and all that you want to do is lie around, that's a life experience. You are welcome to enjoy that. And really none of us should be telling you otherwise.
Right.
So, but you are the type of person, you stay busy, you lead a very active life, you have your hands on a lot of fires. So you to take time is probably what your body wants you to do, so it can go through some of the shifting that is occurring.
Right. And I think you're bringing such a good point that for so many people, when you talk about shadow or working on your dark side or whatever, people see it as the right or wrong. So that is the wrong,
Right.
that's the bad side. You don't want to deal with that. And I often, I think I share that with you, maybe on the first episode, in the world of Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
which is where like I learned the most about energy healing. A lot of people have taught me to believe that there is no such things as dark energy,
Mm-hmm.
or as a dark side, or as but it's funny because my Reiki master, I want to say like a couple months ago, she started saying, hey, like she connected with some kind of being that was working on shadow, and that was their job, is shadow work. And it was the first time that I was hearing a Reiki master talking about shadow work. And I thought, this is brilliant. And it really resonated with me, because
Mm-hmm.
I was taught from a long time to be scared of it, and not just that, to actually completely ignore it, think that it doesn't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I started working with a different type of energy that is just opening up different aspect of me, which I really enjoy, and it makes me uncomfortable. I think that's probably a normal process, but I'm really enjoying. You're right. Like, it kind of like the shadow work stops you from being in that creative flow, but at the same time, if you learn to embrace it and shed light to it, it's like you're expanding your whole
True. You start to go through other portals that expanded beyond where you have been, and those portals take you to newer developments of creative ability that you carry. Also new things that cause you more learning, so the learning never stops. So you can still experience pain. I don't believe you ever actually, as long as we have a physical body the way that we have it, we will always have a pain body associated with it. So if people are saying that shadow work doesn't end, and that's what they're talking about, well, that's true. But what is not true is that you have to be dealing with this shit the rest of your life if you don't want to. There's a quick way to get to a point where I'm really starting to experience it this year, and I know I'm not the only person at the current time or in past time on our planet's time-space continuum to have reached this, and more people are going to go, oh my God, like I finally reached this point where I'm in my creative mastery. I still am experiencing the symptoms that you described, fatigue and all this other stuff, but it's from literally, before you brought this up, like the past 2 hours I've been going, wow, I'm so fatigued and so drained but I'm like, what is it? I'm like, my whole body is in bliss in a way that it has never experienced. It's reaching those blissful states while I'm in a conscious moving continuum, as opposed to just in trance, as opposed to just in meditation.
I like that.
Now it's doing it full time, and I'm like, I feel like like the space shuttle going through the atmosphere layers. It's like, hold on, man, we're going faster and faster, and I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to hold on to this comic.
Right.
But now my shadow work is out of the way, so I'm not self-doubting. I'm not self-sabotaging. I'm not bringing in the old demons and things like that that would normally stop me. So those shadow work things are no longer popping up and going. I mean, they're there. I see them for a second, but then we laugh with each other because now we're friends. So
Right.
now it's like, keep going, and I'm like, oh man, that's just as fatiguing. In the beginning, at least, this is where I'm at. I'm in the beginning of stepping into my creative self, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but
Right.
this is what it's feeling like right now.
And it's almost like a transition of like your expansion. Like it's that
Yeah.
growth happening at the same time. Do you feel the same as I feel, like after you go through that physical like phase of fatigue or whatever it is, do you feel after you're like, wow, like everything is so much more expanded? I don't know what other word to use,
Yeah.
but you feel like so much easier to deal with certain things, or
I don't know what this one's going to feel like yet. I suspect that where I'm at now is sort of uncharted territory for a majority of civilization.
get
Um, but up until this point, yes, every single time I felt a release, like this and every single time I'd be like, I'm done. I finally like made it through everything, and then another one, like all you had was a momentary reprieve until you did all of what we call the shadow work, you
yeah
know, and that, I mean, what your shadow work looks like is unique to everybody. Everybody's got a different way.
of dealing with it. It's interesting because while you say that, like I'm thinking of how certain things used to bother me and trigger like really intense emotions in me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't pinpoint something specific, but certain behaviors in people or things that people say. And now it's like, it just goes like,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing. And that's what I mean. It's that feeling of like, wow, like I've grown a lot. Like this
yeah.
doesn't bother me anymore. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
triggered by that. Or even like if you're in a relationship, like a love relationship, I can even see myself having dealt with so much shadow. Like I've always been with this current relationship. At the beginning I was so codependent,
Mm.
and I couldn't stand people who were codependent but didn't realize that that was actually a reflection of who I was, right?
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
it took a while for me to realize that. And actually, I think Austin kind of called it, which is good. Like he needed to say
Okay.
it. Like he kind of called it and said, like, it's not for me to make you happy. It's for you to be happy, like to choose to be happy. Like it's not his job. And it's true. And it was that whole interesting, like, for him, it was, he did something similar you did to me. It totally triggered me that he said that. At first I was like kind of mad at him, like how dare you. And that and usually, and I guess for people, if they don't really know what we're talking about, like listeners, if you get really mad at something or you get really insulted by something,
Uh-huh.
usually it's your shadow side that is like very upset and doesn't want you to shed light
Right.
to it, right?
That's so true.
and and for me, like I've started noticing that whenever I get like offended, which honestly it doesn't happen often at all anymore, like
Yeah.
I'll just have, and it's like you, like I'll have that little trigger and I'm like, hey, hi friends, okay, thank you for giving me the heads up, I'm just gonna pay
Yeah.
attention to this, like that's it. It's
Yeah.
like a matter
Yeah.
of seconds.
Yeah. So a coworker of mine is reading the book that my wife and twin flame Allison has written, The Era of the True Creator.
Yeah.
And he got to the point in the book where she's talking about the fourth dimension, as we coin it. Everybody's got a slightly different definition, but we call the fourth dimension the astral realm, the realm that is full of the right and the wrong, the judgment of good and bad, the demons, the wars, the monsters, all that stuff. Because below the fourth dimension, we all know we're in the third dimension. We all know the physical realm is the third dimension. I mean, we're aware of that. And then most people seem to call the fifth dimension heaven, the heavenly realms. So when you look at it, the fourth dimension is the cloud layer between where everything is perfect and where everything is physical and forgotten. And then the stuff that gives the collective consciousness, all that stuff is in the fourth dimension. The shamanic realms, the psychic realms, the astral realms. And because that stuff doesn't exist in the fifth dimension, in the fifth dimension, you're just in this peaceful mastery level. That, as it pertains to Earth, because that dimension doesn't exist for other planets, other areas of life and stuff like that. That's really an Earth-based thing. That's for us. Those are our guides, our teachers, that what we're aspiring to be in our journey from the third dimension back to home. And so we're trying to create that bridge between heaven and earth in the body. So the shadow work is that fourth dimensional realm, that realm that separates us. So when we go through that fourth dimensional realm, we get zapped over and over and over until we learn how to connect to the realm of mastery through the heart center, as we call it, to anchor it in so much within ourselves that everything is perfect all the time. But that doesn't mean that while we're in a body, we still don't get pissed off. We still don't get fiery. We still don't have our passions. We still don't want to have sex. All these things are still the beauty of being human. And that brings me to my coworker. He got to this point in Allison's book where she's describing this stuff. And he's like, either it's a misinterpretation on his part or a way that it was delivered in the book, or who knows, right? But he's saying, I kind of disagree with what I think she's saying, because to me, I understand what the fourth dimension is. He's like, I get what she's saying. It really makes sense to me. But he's like, I love this human experience. So I actually love the fact that we have that stuff that she's describing as the fourth dimension. I love the right and wrong, and I love the game.
Okay.
And this isn't a person that really realizes where he is in his spiritual journey. He's just always keen to learn more and add to his palette of tools. So it's I mean, but that's mastery. When you say, I love the fact that we have that thing that some people are calling the fourth dimension, and that's mastery. As long as you love that and you love all the shit that's going on there and what is feeding your mind and your system, that's all it takes. You don't have to do anything else. Right. You don't have to even love it. Like, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to start to go through this process of making yourself harmonic, you don't have to have visions. You don't have to be a mystic. You don't have to read energy. But if you accept that fourth dimension and know what it is and love all that stuff that's in it, that's all you got to do.
That's interesting. So you've mentioned earlier, like, a state of bliss. Would you say that's the fifth dimension?
Yes. Okay. It's from getting through the fourth, and then it starts to anchor itself out. Now, a lot of people experience that state of bliss through yoga or through art or through meditation, or there's so many things. Like, you can experience it while surfing, while driving, while running, you name it, through a good orgasm. Now, I don't mean just the ejaculation. I mean when your whole body is just like zinging with energy. Yeah. And and it's not projected. It's not like that codependent, like, I love my partner who brought me to this place. Exactly. It's like, whoa. Like, you can, and that's why I'm a tantric master, because I understand that you don't even have to have the connection with somebody to have that orgasmic bliss. So it's sort of I don't know if I'd say it's a fifth dimensional thing as much as it is our energy body in its state outside of fear and outside of judgment, with complete surrender to the energy flow of bliss.
Right. For me, that's the energy of the fifth dimension. But
interesting.
I know.
That may be true, because when I experience those masters there in that realm, they make me want to laugh in a whole body way that I can't experience just through laughter. Yeah. So maybe you're right.
Just like we can experience the fourth dimension on Earth, I think it's the same for the fifth dimension.
It could be.
Like the human experience. But,
things we'll understand as we go down the journey. I bet you're right, because why would Tantra exist? To get you to that liberation.
That level.
That liberation takes you into the fifth dimension and beyond. So, but you're probably right. I could see that.
In some ways, the human experience is the non-capacity to be in that state at all time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
your shadow things are the things that prevent you from feeling that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, absolutely.
Now people describe shadow work as demons and monsters and all sorts of shit, which I only see when I'm like doing the work with them and walking through their visions.
Yeah.
But I liken that to, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the book all about Krishna, and Hare Krishna movement uses it. So there's a whole, so the Mahabharata is an ancient book series, thousands of years ago, before Christian, before Buddhist. The original longest lasting system, not the original, but the longest lasting system, and one of the earliest written about. The Mahabharata, 10 books, all about the different deities and stuff that we call now Hindu, that were Vedic at the time.
Yeah.
One of the books is the Bhagavad Gita, and this one is specifically all about Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, like a living, breathing persona that embodied all things that are possible.
Okay.
And you'll even see a statue of Krishna in that, an expression of that in India. They call it the Krishna opulence, and it's like Krishna at the front, and it looks like an expanding cobra neck or whatever, and it's got all the other deities lined outside of him, saying that they're all Krishna in the end.
Cool.
So there is not just Hanuman, or just Kali, or just whatever. They're all Krishna, or they're all separate. But anyway, so in that Bhagavad Gita, and that ties into what I was just saying, that it ties into the point. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that Krishna will appear, if Krishna is the name we use as God, is everything, will appear to everybody as they need to see God. So if you don't believe in God, but you love caterpillars, that's how you would say that God is appearing to you, even if you don't even want to use the word God. If you are a person who lives in so much fear, then that will probably show itself to you as a demon in different forms. Yeah. And you will see demons because you're so focused. But it's the same. It's all one. It's all the same energy. We are all the same energy. So when people are, I feel like it's really important to talk about this in shadow work. When people are saying, I see demons, and then you have a shaman or a psychic who's going, I see your demons. All you're just seeing is the interpretation that they want for themselves. Yeah. To understand their teacher at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe permanently.
I totally align with that. Yes. Because we're the own creator of whatever physical manifestation there is.
All of it.
So we are. And, while you were talking, something popped in my head, and I really want to have that conversation. And I think it's
cool.
I hope the listeners are ready. We're going to talk about
let's do
it. I just want to talk about what's happening in the nation right now.
Okay.
And you have, so the thought that came in my head is that universally, it seems like we're in the shadow work. How people are intensely reacting to Donald Trump, to the president. How people are intensely reacting to police officers or to whatever, like, is some kind of authority, but at the same time, there's like very strong feelings and reactions. And I want to go back to, it's our own manifestation. We've created that. And Donald Trump doesn't trigger me anymore. Like, it's not like, I feel like I went past that. I'm actually annoyed when people like don't support him in the sense that he's a president, but I just think that, like, you just need to do your own work, and you just need to go with it. And I don't want to come across wrong about this, but whatever. I just feel
our journey.
Right. I just feel like he is an image of like a very self-centered individual.
Yes.
And if we look at all the social media, there's nothing more self-centered than that. So it's a pure reflection of our society to some extent.
Completely.
And he has said different things about different people. He's very judgmental. Oh my goodness. Like if we look at some of the movement that we have, they are very judgmental. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like I'm thinking of a feminist movement that I was connected with at one point that I was like, I'm not into this. Like it's not women against men. It's about this synergy. It's about like being all together in it together. And
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I think that we lose track of that. Like it's about all everything. Everyone's important, and but in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that we're all connected. And I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to say anything? Like
Man, you're nailing it. Like I can just sit here and go, preach it, sister.
I just feel like it's very, do you feel that it's the society, like the universal energy that's going on in the nation right now is dealing with the shadow work?
Well, yeah, I already know that. It's true, and it's beautiful. There's a girl that I met out here who's 24, and she is in a college out here for Chinese medicine, and this is here in Asheville, North Carolina, is an area where the wounded woman is like strong. Now, North Carolina itself is a Republican state, but Asheville is anti-Republican.
Okay.
Not just liberal, but anti-Republican. So there's already where number one, you're never gonna get anywhere.
Yeah.
Anti anything, you already cut your own nose off your face.
Ah,
So there's no progress to be made now. And that's a great experience. That's a great human experience to be anti. Maybe in another lifetime you're like pro everything. So great, enjoy it. It's not getting you anywhere. At least it's not getting the collective to grow, other than unless you earn your way through it.
yeah.
So Asheville is very much anti-Trump and everything, and it's quite interesting. So this girl lives here, and well, our first time hanging out, she just randomly brings it up. I wasn't even going there, and she said, Trump's just an activator. And she's like, I love what he's doing for the planet. This young 24-year-old woman, in this area where all the women are playing like this role of like, woe is me, because Trump made my whole life wrong for the last 60 years or 20 years. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot if that's what you want to subscribe to. Like, it's probably time for you to grow up a little bit. Like, again, my trigger point, right? But it's not even that. It's just more like my fire. It's like my fire wants to just punch holes through that and help you like rattle it out a little bit more. It's just really the mischief in me. But I'm like, but this girl said that. I'm like, that is the most brilliant thing I could have heard in Asheville from a female. And that's the thing is Trump is a master, and everybody's a master on some level in some other form. And people will listen and go, well, maybe I've already heard all your stories and your objections. People like go to another channel if you're going to have a maybe about that, and then you can't get past it. But really, like, Trump is an activator. He's a master, and this is the time of shadow work to break through to our creative self. Otherwise, Allison wouldn't be writing a book right now called The Era of the True Creator. What stops us from being our true creator is the reflection, as you said, that Trump holds. Trump holds the reflection of judgment and narcissism and fear and all the things. And so when you're anti-Trump, it goes back to what you said earlier. When you're anti something, it's something in you that you haven't dealt with yet. So I kind of want to shove this down the listener's throat that is anti-Trump and say, you're doing the wrong thing by being anti, because you're looking outward for stuff that you're not ready to deal with yet.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
And this weekend, I went to a festival, a big one here in Asheville, long running. They do it twice a year, called Leaf. It's a woman who puts it together. And this weekend, she had Ani DeFranco, a long time, 30 years worth of singing and standing up for women's empowerment. And I got to meet her alone. Like it was just a beautiful little synergy that happened all over the weekend that just made my body just like be pulled towards her. And I said, if this is not my mind, then make us both see each other. And it happened while I was watching her up on stage talk with other women. Another woman being in a local band called Rising Appalachia. And that woman, when she was talking, she's still in the grind, man. She's nowhere near getting out of this yet, but I don't know if she will. That's her journey. But the Rising Appalachia chick is probably where Ani DeFranco was years ago and is now starting to settle out of. And you could see the difference in the two. Now, the Rising Appalachia chick, because I'm putting you on blast here, and I know probably at some point you're going to be hearing this. Leah is your name. Yeah, you got it all wrong. You're like up on stage saying, women, if you want to be an angry, rebellious punk, blah, 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 fucking do it. Yeah. Now, if you want to be like this nice, nurturing kind, well, that's okay too. And men, like, if you want to be like that kind and gentle, we should support you. But if you don't want it, then, well, I guess that's okay too. I'm like, somebody throw a fucking phone at her and knock her off the stage, because while she's having her particular experience, and that's great. And who knows, she could very well be activating people, because we do it on all levels.
That's true.
You know, to action. Maybe, you know, she's still speaking to people who maybe need a fire to action in themselves to do something.
Yeah.
But she's not speaking to people who are looking for actually any sort of self-empowerment. She's speaking to the people to keep the fire going and basically have the same exact side of the coin. So basically telling Trump he's an asshole keeps you the asshole, because all you're doing is reflecting your shit onto this person, and it's a mirror. It's all it is.
I think it is a mirror too. I mean, I've done a lot of work since he came in power, and it's been interesting to see my feelings change toward him. Like, I'm not saying I love the guy. I'm just saying he is what he is, and I never.
Yeah.
I don't get triggered by it, and I actually get bored when people start talking about him.
Right. Yeah, it's like, okay, thanks, kindergartners. I'm ready to talk with the adults in the PhD program that I'm in. Yeah. But that all aside, like my shadow work being cleared, actually, I just love Leah from Rising Appalachia, and I love Ani DeFranco, truly. Like, we had a great energetic exchange, which the universe told me what that was all about. And, you know, I love all the women who are anti-Trump, and I love all the guys and gals that I know, because there's plenty of women who are like fiery on the side of Trump. So, like, it's not even a feminine thing, it's, you know, a female thing.
No, it's not.
I just love it all. Yeah. I get fiery because I like that throwing punches at people's ego, because that's all I'm doing, is trying to bruise the ego a little bit. But the human and the light behind the human, like, it's just so beautiful to me. And the fact that we can live in this expressionism and do all these things is still so freaking cool.
It is cool, and that's the beauty of it. And that's where we need to keep the channel open for conversations, because as soon as you say, and I'm anti this, I want to ask so many questions to that person. I want to be like, okay, wait. Like, how can you be black or white in the gray world? Like, that's impossible. Like, let's get to the bottom of this, right? Because for me, I see it as a challenge. If someone say I'm anti this, it's like, okay, I'm going to prove it that you can be the other side. Not because I'm on the other side, but because I want to see people evolve into that thinking and move into that shadow work, basically. Because you're right, like, it hides something that we're uncomfortable with as soon as we sense something. So totally, absolutely. I like that. I like thinking that we're doing the shadow work in terms of a society right now, because the beauty that comes out of it after is going to be so awesome.
So big.
Yeah, it is.
So big. And when it happens, the ones who really start to have true enlightenment set in will be so in love with having Trump do what he did. because he is the single person across the globe heading off this new energy, like literally bringing in the barrier to the new energy that most of us don't even know what that looks like yet.
Right, exactly, we don't, and that's the exciting part. Like I for me, I get so excited about that stuff because I can see, it's like watching a kid growing up, or watching like the seeds that you've planted start to grow, and but not knowing what flower you planted. It's like,
Totally.
it's like, what is going to come out of this?
Exactly. And the universe has already planted the seeds. It doesn't matter what we do or don't do. It's already going on its course.
It is.
But we're all being guided to do these things that we're doing for
Yeah.
various reasons. And so, it's going to evolve itself with or without our participation. It's just more fun to be here in the body and be a participant in it.
Yeah. And the analogy of the seed is so good, because most plants will actually flower when there is a lot of shadow, a lot of darkness.
Ah.
A lot of plants will flower if there's less water, or if they're really not well treated.
Yeah.
Interesting. They'll flower anyway. So
Wow.
that's
cool. I didn't think about that. What a beautiful, as above, so below, right?
yeah, exactly. It's all synergy. That's what we're talking about, right?
So much. Yeah. That's beautiful. Like, I don't know. It's almost like we can just kind of come out of the episode on that note, because that leaves, we've given a lot of food for thought, and then you leave it on that anecdote right there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Maybe that will just plant the seed for people to think about.
That's it. Yes. It's a good seed. And I want listeners to kind of reflect on the things that trigger you. Like what triggers you? What are you frustrated about right now? Like, what is the one thing you're anti, that you can't tolerate, and sit down on that. Like, reflect on that. That's how we grow.
Yeah. And certainly if we've triggered you at all, like reach out to us. We're not looking for a fight at all. We're not, that's not what we're about. We might kind of slap the ego around, but don't think we haven't been through it ourselves and don't find the beauty in it. So we're not trying to do that. We really want to know if we're causing triggers in you, trust that it's going to help loosen some stuff up for you.
Oh my goodness, yes. Wynn has triggered so many things in me in the past, but we're still friends.
We're still here. We are doing this thing, and wearing our metal T-shirts today, because one of the last triggers that you had with me, at least that I recall, was talking about hair metal bands from the '80s, and you were getting triggered about that.
I did. It was very subtly, but it was discomfort that came to me at that time. Absolutely. Yeah, that was my last shadow work. And I've been listening to heavy metal since.
Oh, good. All right. See, it goes away fast.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So let's end on that note with the seeds.
Perfect.
And yeah, listeners, if you want to connect with us, feel free to do so. We talk, and there's nothing, we're not attacking anyone. We're just sharing our own journey, what we went through, and being vulnerable is part of it.
Totally. And we have been vulnerable to get to this point in more ways than we would have ever probably imagined we could.
I totally. Well, thank you, listeners, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Definitely. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Isabel. Thanks, listeners.